sometimes people will ask, well, why is it that you want to change education? And to me, one of the main reasons, of course, is the declining mental health of the youth. But it's not just that. It's also our society has changed, and therefore our education need to change. So, for example, let's say 50 years ago, we didn't have access to the internet, and so focusing very strongly on content in school made a lot of sense because the teacher knew a lot of stuff, and the students didn't know it, and then the teacher transmitted the knowledge, and that was a very good idea. Now a student can go online and use ChatGPT, and it can give a better answer than most teachers to most questions. And so what is the role of the teacher, and what is the role of education in a modern society if we look 50 years into the future? One thing that there's a consensus around in a lot of educational communities is that it's so-called transferable skills that we need to look at. It is sometimes called 21st century skills or human skills, or to some people, the soft skills. But it's like, what can we imagine that no matter what happens, it's probably going to be a good idea for you to be able to work with other people. It's probably going to be a good idea for you to be happy and to be able to take care of your happiness by having emotional literacy and knowing how to express yourself and doing what, makes you happy. It's probably going to be a good idea for you to have some understanding of how systems work, because that's transferable to all different regions, all different sectors of whatever work you might end up in. You can use that skill. So instead of having that role of a transmitter of knowledge, the modern role for a teacher, in my opinion, is really to facilitate learning. So you teach a student, or you create a space rather, where a student feels good, first of all, and are curious and maintain a reason why they want to engage. And there they learn things that they can use in an array of different scenarios of the future, because we don't know what the future is going to look like. One addition to that is that if anyone knows what the future is going to hold, it's probably the student. So asking them and giving them more agency about what they want to learn is a great idea. We go to school for about 6 to 10 years. This is secondary and primary education globally. It's 6 years is the minimum, and most kids in the world go to school today, which is a huge improvement from even just 30 years ago. But almost no schools will ask at any point during those, let's say, 8 years, who do you want to be as a person? Which skills would you like to learn? And so right now what we see is really the old industrialized old industrial model of education. It stems from the Prussian Empire, and then it was integrated into England, and there to America, and then into the whole world. And the idea was really, and it's explicit in the initial text around how the education model was created, is to create less sort of open-minded or less free-thinking people that are good workers in factories, and that can meet the needs of the society that we were getting into at that point. And so that made some sense, especially from a capitalist perspective. But what about now? What do we need in our future? Like, where a lot of the roles that are more easily done, or more things that a robot might be able to do in 20 years, it won't be as necessary. So what we need now are exactly the skills that our current educational model are suppressing. One study that I saw recently came from NASA, and they're testing for genius in kids. And the way that they define genius is divergent thinking, which means, you take a cup, for example, and then you ask them, how many ways can you use this cup for? And then they get a certain time frame. And they're really, really good at it when they're young, to the fact that, we have 60-70% genius. And then after a few years in school, non-surprisingly, because they're being taught to the test, and they are put in this model of first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, teaching to the test and then getting to the next, just like a factory, and we all have to learn the same, and the international PISA scores are saying if it's a good country or a bad country, and the funding to the schools is so dependent on how well they score that it's very important to get all of these things right. They lose their genius, they lose their creativity, and they lose their happiness. So if we could create a place, we have 8 years or we have 6 to 10 years with kids. Imagine what we could do with 6 to 8 years or 6 to 10 years of young people in a school. If they were feeling well, if they had some agency to choose what they wanted to learn, how creative, how wonderful the world could be if the students came out not all knowing the exact same thing, but all much better and much closer to who they are. The word education comes from Greece, ancient Greece. It means educare, or to bring forth, to take something from within and bring it to the forefront. So what we have today is like we have a student and we see it as an empty cup and we try to fill it up with a bunch of shit. And it's all the same shit that we all get, right? But if we look at it more of a statue, but you have to make it in the right shape to bring out the beauty of the individual, we would have a world where not only would students hopefully like to go to school, not only would they hopefully be better at working together and finding solutions to both local and global problems, where they would feel more connected to themselves, the nature around them, and the whole human species, the planet even, but hopefully we would also have a world where so many of our children don't decide to take their own life.